I didn't plan on buying a storage unit that day. I was just killing time. My car had broken down 2 weeks earlier, and I'd spent most of my savings fixing it. I was behind on rent, picking up extra shifts at the hardware store, trying to stay ahead of that quiet panic that creeps in around 2 a.m. That Saturday, I followed my buddy Marcus to a local storage auction. He flipped units sometimes, found furniture, tools, resold them online. I wasn't there to bid, just to watch. We walked down a long concrete hallway that smelled like dust and old cardboard. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. At the very end was a unit the manager said had been unpaid for months. The door rolled up halfway. Inside, just a metal toolbox, a wooden chair, and a sealed plastic bin. That was it. Nobody else bid. Marcus nudged me. $50. Worst case, you get scrap metal. I don't know why I raised my hand. Maybe I just wanted to win something for once. I opened the unit alone later that evening. The toolbox was heavy. Inside were mechanics' tools, old but clean, organized, maintained. The wooden chair, handmade, solid oak. Someone had carved tiny initials underneath the seat. But the plastic bin, that's what stopped me. Inside were dozens of neatly stacked envelopes of cash. Not tens, not 20s, hundreds. I counted 3 times. $18,400. I sat there on the cold concrete floor, staring at it. No note. No explanation. Just cash. For someone like me, that kind of money wasn't just helpful. It was life-changing. I drove home with the bin on the passenger seat, my hands gripping the steering wheel like someone might chase me for it. All night I ran scenarios in my head. Maybe the owner had passed away. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they were rich and didn't care. Or maybe they were coming back for it. The next morning, I looked up the storage facility's public records. The unit had belonged to a man named Daniel Reeves. Rent unpaid for 6 months. No forwarding address. I searched the name online. There were dozens, but one listing caught my eye. Local missing persons report. Daniel Reeves, age 62, former auto mechanic, reported missing 5 months ago. Last seen leaving work. My stomach dropped. The next day, I drove to the auto shop listed in the report. It was small, family-owned, the kind of place with hand-painted signs and coffee-stained paperwork taped to the walls. A young woman stood behind the counter, maybe late 20s. I asked about Daniel. Her expression changed instantly. "That was my dad." She said it calmly, too calmly. She told me he'd worked there 30 years, showed up every day at 7 a.m., left at 5 p.m. Same routine, never missed work. Then one Friday, he didn't come home. No signs of struggle, no debts, no enemies, just gone. She explained they'd searched everywhere, filed reports, posted flyers, hired a private investigator until the money ran out. Money. The word echoed in my head. I didn't tell her about the storage unit. Not yet. Instead, I asked, "Did he ever rent one?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Yeah, said it was for extra tools. Why?" I hesitated, and then I lied. Just curious. I left the shop with the weight of $18,400 pressing harder on my chest than it had the night before. For 3 days, I couldn't sleep. I'd pull the bin out from under my bed, stare at it, close it again. I kept thinking about her face when she said, "My dad," about the carved initials under the wooden chair. DR. On the 4th night, I made a decision. I went back to the storage unit. I examined everything again. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. I bent down and ran my hand along the underside of the seat. That's when I felt it. Something thin, flat. Taped to the bottom of the chair was a small envelope. My pulse quickened as I carefully peeled it off. Inside was a photograph. It showed Daniel standing next to that exact chair, smiling, in front of the auto shop, and written on the back in faded ink, "For Lily, when the shop is finally yours." Lily, the daughter. The money wasn't random savings. It was something he'd been building, for her. The next morning, I went back to the shop. This time, I brought the plastic bin. I asked if we could talk privately. When I set the cash on the desk, her face went pale. I explained everything: the auction, the unit, the tools. Her hands trembled as she opened the lid. She didn't cry. She just stared at it. "That's the exact amount he told me he'd saved," she whispered. She said he'd been planning to retire, transfer ownership of the shop to her officially, clear some old business taxes, start fresh. Then she looked at me and said something I didn't expect. He thought someone was following him the last few weeks. The room felt smaller. He didn't tell the police, said he didn't want to sound paranoid. She walked to the back and returned with a small security camera hard drive. "The system in the shop backs up for 90 days, she said. "We never check the older footage carefully. It loops." We plugged it in, scrolled back. 3 weeks before he disappeared, we saw it. A black SUV parked across the street. Every day, same time, different angle, watching. We zoomed in frame by frame. One afternoon, Daniel stepped outside. The SUV door opened slightly, then the footage cut. The next day, he was gone. We took everything to the police immediately. Turns out another shop owner in the county had gone missing 2 years earlier. Same pattern. Small independent mechanic, close to retirement. After reopening the case, investigators traced the SUV to a shell company. That shell company was tied to a larger auto parts distributor, a distributor known for pressuring independent shops to sell. Daniel had refused multiple buyout offers, and he wasn't the first. Months later, arrests were made. Corporate intimidation had turned into something darker, much darker. They never found Daniel, but they found enough. The day the arrests hit the local news, Lily called a press conference outside the shop. She told her father's story, and then she did something that caught me off guard. She asked me to stand beside her. She told everyone how a stranger who had every reason to keep quiet didn't. She handed me something wrapped in brown paper. It was the wooden chair, restored, polished. Underneath the seat, she'd carved new initials, DR and JM. "My dad believed in honest work," she said into the microphone, "and sometimes, in rare moments, honest people." The shop is still there. Business doubled after the story aired. Community rallied around it. As for me, I didn't become rich, but I became something better, part of something that mattered. And sometimes, when I sit in that chair in the corner of the shop, listening to the sound of impact wrenches and country radio playing softly in the background, I think about how close I came to walking away, and how one decision, one honest choice, changed more than just my life. It gave a missing man his voice back.